looking at converting fractions to decimals today. In order to convert fractions to decimals, make sure that you, or what you're aiming for, is that you need to get to a tenth, hundredths, or a thousandths for a denominator. Okay. Now, you could probably argue that, say, well, what about 10 thousandths? But to be very honest with you, if you haven't been able to find a denominator that works for tenths, hundredths, or thousandths, you can't convert that fraction to a decimal without a calculator, or it can't be done very easily. So while this one is definitely a possibility, most likely you're not going to need to worry about getting that far. If you remember from past days, past lessons, there are some fractions that I told you you just want to have memorized, like the 1/3 equals the 0 and 3/10 repeating. Okay. You just want to have that memorized. Same thing as with the 2/3. It's a bad 2. 2/3 equals the 0 and 6/10 repeating. Okay. Those, if you don't have it memorized, no, you can't convert them to a decimal without a calculator, but that's why I'm saying so very common fractions they are that you want to make sure that you just memorize them. It'll save you so much time in the long run. Question?
So if you do 9, if you go up 1, it would be 99, and then it would just keep on going.
Right.
Well,
3/3 is technically 1. Okay. So there's a reason. Let me get rid of this here. There's a reason why we want those denominators, the tenths, hundredths, and thousandths, and that's because they are also place values. Tenths, hundredths, and thousands. Of course, here's this, the ones place value that I put a 0 in. Okay? And that's why it matches out. And here's what I like to tell students, that if you're converting from fractions to decimals, if they sound the same, then you converted correctly. Starting off with a real easy one, 2/10. Okay? That's what it's written as a fraction, 2/10, 2/10. And how it's written as a decimal is just a 2 in the tenths spot. Because if you do read decimal numbers correctly, the way that they're supposed to be, this is read 0 and 2/10. And up here, there's no whole number, so technically there's that. And I would read the fraction, or excuse me, I would read the mixed number the same way, 0 and 2/10. So you notice that if I read the fraction, 0 and 2/10, and if I read the decimal, 0 and 2/10, it sounds exactly the same. So if it sounds the same, it is the same. You've done it correctly. Okay. Moving on to the hundredths place value. You know, if I have this right here. Okay. So what I've just written here for the fraction, boys, girls, would you just read that fraction to me?
21/100.
21 hundredths. Okay? So you hear that, and what I'm also hearing when I say that hundredths denominator, I'm hearing hundredths place value. All right? Remember the place value. Tenths, hundredths, and then we have our thousandths, right? And by the way, when you're trying to spell decimal place values, you spell the whole number place value and then just add the THS.
Yeah.
It's the only difference. Pronounce the same, just hit at the end of it, right? It does kind of sound like that too. All right, so here we are. 21 hundredths is what you read to me for the fraction. So then it's very simple. At no point in time should your denominator ever become part of your number. Never, 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 never does your denominator become part of your decimal number. It's your numerator that matters. So you notice I already have the 2 in the tenths place value. I have the 1 in the hundredths. And now just read this new decimal number to me for 0 and
21/100.
So 21 hundredths sounds exactly the same. Decimal sounds exactly the same as 21 hundredths fraction. Right? Then moving on to our thousandths. Okay, read that fraction for me.
214,000.
214 thousandths. Okay? And so we just end up adding the 4 to the thousands place value. And of course, we know that it's going to sound the same when we read the decimal. Here's one thing that I want to point out to you to be helpful, is that if you notice the digit right there, circled in green, okay, the 4, it's the last digit in my numerator. All right? The last digit in your numerator should go in the place value that your denominator tells you.
Yeah.
So the 4 should go in the thousandths place value. So if you're not quite sure where to put it, start at the end of the number or on the right of the number and work backwards toward the left. And you think, well, that's easy because there's only 3 place values there and I have 3 digits in the numerator. It doesn't matter, you know, blah, 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 whatever. Well, here's where that does matter. Okay? If I end up with something like 4 thousandths, right? And some of you, maybe going too quickly, would do this. Is that 4 thousandths as a decimal?
No.
No, it's 4 tenths, which is a huge difference. If you think that this fraction is the same as that decimal right there, this right here is less than a penny. The 4 thousandths is less than a penny. This 0.4 or 4 tenths is 4 dimes. And we know money that is not the same. Right? So here's what we're saying, and this is where I'm saying it is helpful, that know the place value, tenths, hundredths, thousandths, and this number, my last digit, goes in the place value, which means I need to put something into the 2 other blanks. Zeros. Placeholders. Zeros are really good placeholders. They don't have any value, but it makes it so that my 4 is the correct distance away from the 0. Did you have a question? Or? No? Okay. So that's why I think it's important to pay attention to the denominator. It tells you where to put the number. Okay, going back a page, the numerator is going to tell you what number to put there. The denominator is going to tell you where to put it. Okay? So just real quickly here, we'll take a glance at this. Looking at it, it is going to give you fraction sticks, and if you notice at the very bottom, then it gives you a decimal number line. Gives you a decimal number line at the bottom. Use a straight edge if needed, but I'm also going to show you that for many of these, you're not going to need a straight edge because you should be able to convert them because you can get your denominator to tenths, hundredths, or thousandths. At no point in time will you need a calculator today. Okay? And you're only filling in some of this page. You are going to leave some of it incomplete. Just make sure that you read the directions as you get there. Questions about converting from fractions to decimals? All right.